The interstellar fitness complex on the orbital station Kothari Prime was a marvel of alien engineering. It boasted low-gravity cardio chambers for the Lidhari, water pressure pools for the aquatic zone, and even zero-G sparring pods for the insected kale. Species from across the Union came there to train, socialize, and show off their physical prowess. To the regulars, the gym was a place of pride. Each species had its niche. Lidhari boasted about their endless stamina, Kale bragged about explosive reflexes, and the reptilian Droth prided themselves on sheer muscle density. It was a stage for competition and, more importantly, superiority. But on a quiet rotation cycle, everything changed. The door hissed open, and an unfamiliar figure stepped inside. At first, the regulars thought it was a joke. The being was small compared to most. Lean frame, 2 arms, 2 legs, no exoskeleton, no scales, no claws. Its species tag identified it as human. A murmur spread across the chamber. Humans were new to the Union, whispered to be Deathworlders. The term meant little to most. It sounded like propaganda, a way to exaggerate toughness. After all, how dangerous could a soft-skinned mammal really be? The human, dressed in simple shorts and a shirt, strode casually toward the weight racks. His name, as later recorded, was Sergeant Daniel Reeve. The Droth were the first to mock him. "Careful, little mammal," one of the reptilians rumbled, curling a barbell with his 3-fingered claws. "Those weights might crush your fragile bones." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Reeve just smiled politely and picked up a warm-up weight. His movements were calm, deliberate, almost unimpressive, until the numbers began climbing. The Droth had been curling 50 units. Reeve doubled it without strain, then tripled it. The laughter died as the bar bent slightly in his hands. When he set it down, not even breathing hard, silence followed him like a shadow. Next came the Lidhari challenge. They invited Reeve to the endurance track, a massive treadmill loop designed for species that could run for hours. Lidhari prided themselves on stamina. They claimed to be able to run an entire planetary day without stopping. Reeve nodded, stepped onto the track, and began to jog. Minutes turned to hours. The Lidhari panted, their silver skin glistening, while Reeve maintained an easy rhythm. When the first Lidhari collapsed, the others urged him to stop. But Reeve didn't stop. He simply shrugged, increased the pace, and kept going until even the trainers begged him to dismount. By the time he finally stepped off, the Lidhari lay sprawled on the floor, utterly defeated. Reeve just sipped from his water bottle. The aquatic zone tried next. "Endurance means nothing," they hissed. "True strength is adaptability." They invited Reeve into their pressurized aquatic chamber, confident no land dweller could last. The water was crushing, dense enough to snap bones. Reeve accepted without hesitation. Inside, he sank into the dark water. The zone swam circles around him, waiting for him to panic. Instead, he adapted, adjusting his strokes, controlling his breathing, letting his body move with the pressure instead of against it. When he finally emerged, he wasn't gasping. He was grinning. "Not bad," he said. "Good resistance training." The zone hissed in disbelief. Then came the Kale sparring pod. The insectids were famed for reflexes so fast they could snatch plasma bolts out of the air. No mammal should have been able to keep up. Reeve strapped into the pod. The drones buzzed around him, simulating attacks from all directions. Observers leaned in, expecting to see the human overwhelmed. But Reeve moved differently. Where the Kale relied on sheer speed, he used anticipation. Where others dodged wildly, he flowed, redirecting strikes, countering at angles the drones hadn't predicted. His movements weren't frantic. They were calculated, efficient, deadly. The match ended with drones disabled and Kale warriors speechless. Word spread quickly. By the end of the cycle, the gym was packed with spectators. They whispered one word again and again, Deathworlder. It no longer sounded like propaganda. It sounded like truth. Reeve, for his part, didn't gloat. He simply continued his workout, push-ups, squats, pull-ups, with a casualness that infuriated his challengers even more than his victories. Finally, a Droth warrior confronted him. "How?" the reptilian demanded. "You are small, fragile, weak. How do you best us all?" Reeves set down his barbell and looked around the gym. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried weight. "Because where I come from, everything tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the microbes, even the ground itself. Earth doesn't give second chances. If you're not strong, you die. If you're not fast, you die. If you can't endure, you die. We don't train for sport. We train to survive." The silence that followed was absolute. Later, the story of that day spread far beyond the station. Alien scholars studied the human phenomenon, trying to understand how a species from a backwater death world could outperform species that had specialized for millennia. Soldiers whispered about what it would mean if humans turned their abilities to war instead of sport. And across the Union, one phrase became common whenever humans entered a gym, a field, or a battlefield. "Careful. That's a Deathworlder."